Hey guys, it's Avi from Nvest.ai here. Hope you're doing well. I'm here at one of the most popular sites on the internet, coinmarketcap.com, where everyone goes to sort of look at the price of their different tokens. But if you're a trader or even investor looking to, try to get ideas, this is not really the greatest site. You only have, a couple of fields that you can filter on: market cap, change in the past 24 hours, circulating supply. I mean, there are other sites where you can go and do your own screening. TradingView has a pretty decent screener, where you can screen on some different different columns. The problem is that, like these columns here, they're set and you don't really get to choose what they are. There's another good site, On-Chain FX, which has a lot of more columns that you can add in here, like some GitHub commits and stuff like that. But again, you don't really get to choose what are the different columns. You can filter on them, but you can't choose them. And just to give you an idea, here's the site Finviz, which has a great technical stock screener for stocks. You can see that you can actually filter on a whole bunch of things. They have fundamental filters, they have technical filters. Here I just filtered on the double top, so it actually shows you all stocks that have made a double top, right? And so really what a stock screener is that you calculate a value for each stock, for each something in your list, each crypto, stock, FX, whatever it is, and you give it a value. And if it meets a certain value, then it's part of your screen. If it doesn't meet a value, then it's not. So here, I guess the double top value could be like a binary value, 0 or 1. And if it meets it, then it's part of the screen. It's part of the results. So I've just built a really simple one for the S&P 500 stocks, because I have data for all the S&P 500 stocks that I get daily. And what I've done is I have a little screener here. This is just a big table of all the different stocks in the S&P 500, and I have different values. This is the rate of change for the 5 days, the 20 days, the 252 days. I have also created this field for head and shoulders. Did it meet a head and shoulders value? So here's looks like these stocks have almost met a head and shoulders pattern, right? And then I have an inverse head and shoulders pattern. If there's one that met it, then we'll see here. So no one really got up to 1. Just who are these stocks here? So you can go through and see what are the different stocks and see if they've met a field. So that's really what a stock screener is, and the real key is to calculate all the different fields. You decide what fields you want to calculate and then just do a filter on them. So it's pretty easy to do this, but you need to have the data, right? So I'm going to go through and show you how to do it in R, where you can actually grab the data, calculate all these different columns, and then create your own filter, which
my
is really
RStudio
page. And this is how I built the little screener that I showed you. This is sort of the code, how we went into it. Apologies, we're going to run through it a little quick, but for those of you not familiar with R, there's lots of great material online, and this we're just using RStudio. So the first thing you need to do, I'm going to load in an Excel file that I downloaded from the internet, which has all the S&P 500 tickers, because I don't know which are the actual S&P 500 stocks off the top of my head. So I had to load in, so that's all I'm just doing. I'm calling this package, and I'm reading this table that has all of the different stocks in the S&P 500, right? And so here are all the different stocks, and really what I'm just really interested is in the identifiers and the ticker symbol. So I can just subset that, and here's a character array of all the different ticker symbols in the S&P 500. And then what I've also done is I have a database that I collect daily stock market data. So I need to access that database, and I just want to pull out the last 1,200 bars for the only the S&P 500 tickers. So these are the different arguments that I input into my function, and then I'm going to run this. This is going to return me a big table, as I call it, with about 500,000 rows, and it's just going to have open, high, low, close, volume data for each S&P 500 symbol, starting from April 16th and going back 1,200 bars or whatever is there for each of the 500 symbols. Right, and then I'm going to, once I do that, I'm going to compute the stock screen function, which basically takes in that big table data and computes all of the column data that we saw for our screener. So if you recall, our screener has it's just pretty much a big table with all the different stocks here, and we compute a bunch of different values. So, the rate of change in the last 5 days, the rate of change in the last 20 days, the volatility, how many times it's above the 50-day moving average, when were the new highs and lows made, etc. So to compute all of that different data, I need to have the raw open, hold, high, low, close data, and then I need to compute for each different stock. I need to compute those values for each one. So this is what this function does. So we're just going to run these 3 lines and then speed up the code because it's going to take still a bit of time because... All right, guys, we're back. We computed all the data. We have this stock screen table, which is this big table with all of the raw data in the columns that we computed. And now we want to make our screener, which is basically just a screener. So we're going to call this one my screener, and what we do is we're just going to hard code the filter and we're going to make a filter and we're going to hard code it into code so that we can use the results. So R uses this code called which, similar to SQL where. So we're going to call stock screen, and we're going to filter on since high 40. We want the stock to have made a high, and we want it to have been in the past 2 days. And we want to have a stock screen where the volume z-score, let's say, is greater than 1.5. So we want it to have the high has to be made in the last 2 days, and we also want to have it on big volume, and we want to have it coming from a small range. So how do we compute a small range? Is we can look at the Bollinger bandwidth. So we have this other thing called Bollinger bandwidth, and we're going to do it less than 0.1. Right, so this is just our filter that we made. We put it into code. You could also go and just play around with it to see what settings you want. And now you can sort of see here are the different stocks that met this criteria. So we have these 3 stocks met our criteria, and that's basically how you create a stock screener. You come up with different criteria. You give it a name. Maybe we call this My Stock Screener 1, and then we have another criteria called My Stock Screener 2. My Stock Screener 3, and that's pretty much how you create a stock screen. The real art when you're creating a stock screen, though, is to try to understand what are the values that you should use here. And the good thing about R is that you can kind of easily go and look at a histogram. If you want to look at a histogram of this field, since high, I think it's breaks. So you can go and look and see what is the distribution like of this variable for all the stocks. And so you can see that, somewhere between 0 and 50, well, 50, I guess, because there was a sell-off recently. But most of the stocks are having this value. So if you're going to use this since high is greater than 200, you're only going to have a couple of different stocks, and those are going to be stocks that are in a downtrend, right? Because they haven't made a 40-day high in over 200 bars. Right, so that's really the key. You want to try to understand what are these different columns that you're looking at, and try to understand what are the right values for you to include in your screener. And really, you can see how many lines of code this was. It was 7 lines of code, and it's that simple. So thanks.